That's right, folks. It's the final NFL game of the season. The time is here for my official Super Bowl preview and predictions that I know that you all have been waiting for so patiently. Without further ado, let's begin right after this short break. Before I begin, I want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, DraftKings Sportsbook. All right, football fans, things are getting real. Get in on the action right now with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. They're offering all new customers $200 in bonus bets instantly after betting just $5. Don't let this slip away. Download the DraftKings app now and sign up using code BARRY. The crown is yours. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets on DraftKings same-game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has got you covered. Bet live on in-progress games right as they happen, making watching the game that much more exciting. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry, you can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code BARRY and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code BARRY only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Of course, we start with the most important position first, the quarterback advantage. I'm not going to waste a lot of your time here. We all know that Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City have the quarterback advantage. Patrick Mahomes going for his 4th Super Bowl championship. He's already appeared in 5 Super Bowls. As I said in my last preview when we were going into the AFC Championship game versus the Bills, Josh Allen's a great quarterback, but there's different conversations. Mahomes is in the GOAT conversation. If he wants to keep pace with Brady and if he wants to keep pace with stacking up championships, this is the time where he's got to do it, because Brady in his late 20s all the way through his mid 30s didn't win any championships, but as you all know, unfortunately, after turning 37, he ripped off 4 more rings. Personally, I don't see Mahomes winning 4 championships after turning 37, so if Mahomes is going to catch Brady in championships, he's going to have to do it and make up for it right now during a time where Brady was unable to get any championships done. But either way, the Kansas City Chiefs have the advantage here, but Jalen Hurts really and honestly should already have a championship ring. He should have a Super Bowl MVP on his resume. 374 yards, 4 touchdowns, 35 points in Super Bowl 57. He had a fumble 6, of course, which all the haters keep talking about, but I do believe that Jalen Hurts is a big game player, and I fully believe that if the Eagles lose, it's not going to be because of Jalen Hurts, much like it wasn't because of Jalen Hurts that they lost last time. But I do feel like because he's going up against a historic GOAT-level quarterback, that his own success early in his career, he's won about 73% of his regular season starts since becoming the full-time starter. He's already made 2 Super Bowl appearances in 3 years, in the last 3 years. So Jalen Hurts himself is off to a very, very good start to his career. Maybe it's not Mahomes, but then again, all he has to do is be better than Mahomes for one day in order to be a champion. But the advantage goes to KC nonetheless. Now we get to the running back advantage, and the obvious answer here is that Philadelphia has the advantage running the ball. Saquon Barkley just won the Offensive Player of the Year award for 2024. He ran for over 2,000 yards in the regular season, and he's currently in the midst of one of the most dominant postseasons any running back has ever had. The only one that comes close is Terrell Davis in 1997, and guess how that season ended for Terrell Davis and the Denver Broncos? It ended with a Super Bowl championship and a Super Bowl MVP in Davis's case. So as an Eagles fan, I'm hoping for a repeat of history there. But if you also want to include scrambling ability for the quarterbacks involved in this game, obviously Jalen Hurts is much more of a scrambler than Mahomes, but Mahomes, as we all know, he seems to always pull out one of those 15 or 20 yard runs at the most crucial moments, and you have everybody covered. He just decides to run it for like 15, 20 yards for first down, and you say, motherfucker, how the fuck did that guy get so goddamn open? How is there no space there? Because he'll lull you to sleep, and that's just one of the things he does that pisses you off, but that's why the Chiefs win a lot. Either way, though, it's no secret the majority of the Eagles' success offensively is centered around their run game. So if they can stay ahead of the chains, they can get short like 2nd and 4 or 3rd and 2, as long as you're not getting in pure passing situations where it's 3rd and long or whatever, then the Eagles will put up a lot of points in this game, and their running game is the key to that. So the Eagles get the advantage in the running game. The wide receiver advantage is going to be going to Philadelphia again because of their top 3, the triplets. They got A.J. Brown, who's an elite receiver. They got Devonta Smith, who's a great second receiver. Dallas Goedert's emerged as a very trustworthy tight end. So, but this is what makes the Eagles such a great team, is they have the weapons and the ability to really beat you in a lot of different ways, but their preferred way is on the ground, obviously, with Saquon and Jalen scrambling. But when the time comes, they've also shown the ability and they have the talent to throw throw the ball to the outside with guys like A.J. Brown. So the Eagles can really play any style you want, although, yes, of course, we all know they prefer to have a run-first style, but they are not incapable of throwing the ball, which seems to be a false narrative that's going around. Like Jalen Hurts is fucking Ryan Leaf or something. It's embarrassing. But as for Kansas City, nobody has a greater connection than Mahomes and Travis Kelce. This will probably be Travis Kelce's last NFL game, but despite that, he'll probably end up getting about 10 or so targets. Xavier Worthy has really progressed as the season has gone on, although they still don't really use him as a speedster down the field like you would expect, but he has made a lot of contested catches, and he's gotten better as the season's gone on. Maybe if Rashee Rice was still active, or if he was able to come back, maybe this would be a different story, but as we all know, that's not going to happen. So to me, the Eagles get the edge in the receivers, tight ends advantage, but I just know that those motherfuckers, Mahomes and Kelce, if it's going to be nut crunching time, it comes down to nut crunching time, they're going to find each other for like a 25, 30-yard gain, or there's going to like do a machine gun, no-huddle offense where they just rattle off like 4 or 5 catches in a row. I've seen it too many times. But still, the Eagles squeak out the advantage at this position. Offensive line advantage, I'm going with the Eagles again. Now, I say this every time just to have some clarity with you guys. I don't sit here and pretend like I watch thousands of reps of every individual offensive lineman. So I do rely on other websites who do exactly that. And like PFF, for example, this is one of the areas where I think PFF is actually helpful because they do go through every lineman's reps and they do review it with former offensive linemen to help grading. And the Eagles were gifted the #1 offensive line, the Offensive Line of the Year award. Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, Kai Becton, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, they've all done really, really well. The only issue here is, and this isn't necessarily the offensive line's fault, but the one weakness of the Eagles and Jalen Hurts is that Jalen Hurts, and I said this for years, Jalen Hurts he's gotten better at it, but he still will bail out of clean pockets when he doesn't have to. So that's really the biggest thing to worry about if you're an Eagles fan, is Jalen Hurts bailing out of clean pockets and just hoping that he doesn't drop the fucking football like he did a couple years ago for a fumble 6. As for Kansas City, we all know the Kansas City problems. They have an elite interior offensive line, all pros there, but they're left tackles, and their tackles are so dog shit that they've had to move Joe Thuney out to tackle to try and figure out what to do there. And this is going to be interesting because, as we all know, the last time these two teams met on Super Bowl Sunday, the field was fucking dog shit and it was all soggy, and the sod father completely ruined everything. And so the Eagles' historic pass rush that had like 70 sacks that season ended up getting no sacks on Patrick Mahomes. I do not think that'll happen again. I think they will get to Mahomes at least a couple times, especially with Jalen Carter, because as we all know, Jalen Carter, although he is battling illness this week, Jalen Carter absolutely excels at ending drives. So overall, the Eagles get the edge at the offensive line. The defense advantage defensively. I think that this is kind of a unique one because the Chiefs have we all know Steve Spagnuolo, Spags, their defensive coordinator. He's well respected. He's won, 4 Super Bowls as an assistant, going back with the Giants in 2007 and upsetting Brady in Super Bowl 42. And I just got to say, really, I think Spags' defenses in Kansas City have been overrated as fuck. If you just look at their raw rankings, they'll look really good, but that's because Mahomes and the offense are the best offense in the league at chewing up clock on a per drive basis. Really, since Spagnuolo has gotten there, this is his 6th season there. Since Spagnuolo's gotten there, the Chiefs defense has had a top 10 defense one time, and that was last season when they finished 3rd. So the Chiefs have had an elite defense one time in Spagnuolo's 6 seasons there. And then even last year in the Super Bowl, they blew 3 leads in the 4th quarter and overtime, and Mahomes had to come save them. So far this year, really, Buffalo and Josh Allen had their way with the Chiefs defense, but again, Mahomes came to save the day. A couple years ago in the Super Bowl matchups between these two very teams, the Eagles put up 35 points, but Mahomes and Kelce, they all had to come to save the day. Even if you look at the 13 seconds game, the Bills put up 36 points. Guess what? Patrick Mahomes had to come and save the day again, him and Kelce. So I think that Spagnuolo, he's good, and I don't have anything against him, but that Chiefs defense, they're a defense that as long as Kansas City's offense is chewing up clock, they can be okay. But if this is going to be a game where they have to have a bunch of possessions and, the Eagles are able to get stopped, then I think that the Chiefs defense is in trouble. Meanwhile, for the Eagles, They're the second-ranked defense in points allowed per drive. They're the first defense in yards allowed per drive, so they allow fewer yards per drive than anybody else. Vic Fangio has really come in and turned this defense into a monster after a lackluster, really terrible 2023 season. The Eagles have a lot of guys, we got Zach Bond, who came out of nowhere to be an all-pro. Jalen Carter's obviously probably the most talented player on the defense. He's the biggest disruptor. If Jalen Carter has a bad game, the Eagles are going to lose, period. But we got two great rookies, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean in secondary. I mean, so this Eagles defense looks like it could be set up to be good for a long time. So the defensive advantage in this game, it goes to the Eagles. Now we look towards the special team advantages. Starting off with the kicking, we all know there's all the jokes and stuff about Harrison Butker, although Justin Tucker has now taken over the mantle as the biggest villain kicker in the NFL. But Harrison Butker, unironically, is one of the most clutch kickers in the history of the league. And Jake Elliott, Super Bowl champion himself, has made big kicks in the postseason. But Harrison Butker is really right up there with Vinatieri and anybody else in terms of clutch kicks. So in terms of the kicking, I think that Kansas City has the edge there, although Jake Elliott has been clutch, but he's been pretty bad this year. The punting seems to be pretty literally identical. Both punters average 48.8 yards per punt. Their net yards per punt is very similar. They're inside the 20 percentage is very similar. Their touchback percentage is very similar. So really, it's just basically a push when it comes to punting. But overall, I think at the end of the day, do I trust Harrison Butker to make a kick to win the game more than I trust Jake Elliott? I hate to say it because I'm an Eagles fan, but at this point in time, the answer is yes. If this was Jake Elliott from a couple years ago, I would say no, and I would probably say this is a toss-up. But right now, I would say KC gets the advantage for special teams because of Harrison Butker's clutchness. And finally, the coaching advantage. This is a pretty big one, and I think you all know where I'm going to go with here. But I will say this, and I've said this before. Nick Sirianni, we're starting out with Sirianni, 706 winning percentage in the regular season. He's made 2 Super Bowls in 3 years. You can argue however much you want about how much of a role he plays in it. I'll just say, as an Eagles fan, I'd much rather have a Sirianni who keeps getting us back to the Super Bowl than a coach who's revered that doesn't get anywhere close to a Super Bowl like Mike Tomlin anymore. So, if the Eagles are going to keep winning a shitload of games every year and going to the Super Bowl basically every year, every other year, I'm cool with Sirianni, but obviously he seems like a coach that's really dependent on how good his coordinators are. And this year his coordinators are great, with Kellen Moore, who's probably going to be the Saints head coach, and Vic Fangio will probably stay with the Eagles defensively, but who knows? He's getting up there in age. But Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, just like Shane Steichen and Jonathan Gannon a couple years ago, were massive parts. It's really all about nailing the assistants when it comes to the ceiling for a Nick Sirianni team. But yeah, he's not as good as Andy Reid. You can just look at the fucking history with Andy Reid there. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. Andy Reid, there's been some revisionist history. He was always considered a very good coach, but he was considered a choker. He was considered a playoff loser because he had 4 NFC Championship game losses. He had lost the Super Bowl. He was made fun of for having no time management, and so he was very similar to what Kyle Shanahan is viewed like now, but he was always still a good coach, and his teams were always very respectable. And then he got Mahomes, and he's basically become unstoppable. And quite honestly, the league is just lucky that they didn't match up 10 years earlier where Reid was 10 years younger, because it speaks for themselves. The success that Mahomes and Reid have had speaks for themselves. Andy Reid's going to go down as one of the best offensive minds of all time, and he tends to save his best offensive plays and his best offensive formations for playoffs and the Super Bowl. So I expect him to once again call a good game, unless somehow the Chiefs' offensive line magically crumbles like it did in Super Bowl 55. So the coaching advantage here is pretty obviously to the Chiefs when push comes to shove. So looking at the overview, quarterback goes to Kansas City, running back goes to Philadelphia, receivers Philadelphia, offensive line Philadelphia, defense Philadelphia, special teams Kansas City, and coaching goes to Kansas City. So this should be a good game, just like it was 2 years ago when it was going down to the wire and the refs fucked us in the ass with that James Bradbury call. I'm still pretty pissed about that. But I expect this to be a very close game, and that's why I'm going to pick the Philadelphia Eagles to win Super Bowl 59, 35-31. I've been saying they're going to win the Super Bowl all year. What kind of pussy would I be that when it's time to fucking nut up or shut up for the Super Bowl prediction why would I not pick them? I'm a fucking Eagles fan. The Eagles are winning the Super Bowl, but it's not going to be easy because Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT quarterback. Andy Reid's a Hall of Fame coach. Travis Kelce is a Hall of Fame tight end. Chris Jones is going to be a Hall of Famer. A lot of stuff to overcome, but I do think at the very end, I think Jalen Hurts will lead a clutch touchdown drive drive to get revenge for 2 years ago. I also think, and these are just some predictions, I think that Patrick Mahomes will throw an interception. I think he'll be sacked a couple times. I think there will be a fumble by either Saquon or Jalen Hurts at some point in the game that'll make it close. I think Devonta Smith will have the best game for any Eagles receiver. Not A.J. Brown. I think Devonta Smith will be the Eagles' top receiver. I think Kareem Hunt will score a couple touchdowns, and Travis Kelce will have another 100-yard game in what will be the last game of his career. There will be no three-peat, not on my watch, pal.